Tamatsu was a disgusting weeb who wanted to be a writer but ends up dead after getting entangled in a war between vampires. However, everything changes when an S-ranked vampire girl revives him with a kiss, turning him into an overpowered half-vampire who claps enemies by stripping their plot armors. It all begins when Tamatsu and his sister, Nuwaka, arrive in Akihabara, the holy land for otakus. Suddenly, she pleads with her older brother to take her to a manga shop, but Tamatsu refuses, until she casually mentions a figurine store selling limited edition Tsunade body pillows. Suddenly, Nuwaka panics and points to the sky, where a girl is floating above them. Before either of them can react, she crashes onto the street and warns everyone that the streets are not safe. Suddenly, a group of people descend from the sky and start wreaking havoc. The girl acts quickly by removing their plot armor, leaving them powerless and bare. Suddenly, the Akiba Vigilant Squad arrives to scold the girl for disrupting the peace. Later, Nuwaka wonders if the event is connected to the bugged ones who are shadow-like beings that stalk people until they take over their bodies and minds. Tamatsu, who knows about the topic, says that once someone becomes a bugged one, they gain superhuman strength and lose all sanity. Right then, Tamatsu gets a text and bolts off to a figurine shop where he sees a rare figurine of his favorite character, Lever. But just as he reaches for it, a random girl grabs the figurine, insisting that Lever is the love of her life. Tamatsu refuses to let go until the girl deploys her ultimate weapon, those gravity-defying honkers. Blinded by jiggle physics on them things, Tamatsu fumbles, allowing her to win. As she celebrates her victory, Tamatsu claims that anyone who loves Lever as much as she does must be his fated friend. The girl, clearly impressed by his speech, introduces herself as Arisa. But Tamatsu appears to be more focused on memorizing her left and right melons than her name. Suddenly, the pink-haired girl crashes through the wall and accuses Arisa of being a bugged one based on her cosplay. Arisa tries to explain that Akihabara is full of people in costume, but the girl doesn't care and chases Arisa out of the store. Meanwhile, Tamatsu hears whispers about an explosion at a maid cafe Nuwaka had planned to visit. Panicking, he grabs Lever and runs to the scene, where the Akiba Vigilants are already blocking it off. However, he sneaks in and finds a room full of eerily still customers. As he approaches, one suddenly snaps, revealing bloodshot eyes and sharp teeth. Just then, the pink-haired girl reappears, tearing the enemy's clothes off and neutralizing them. She tells Tamatsu to escape, but he spots Nuwaka unconscious and runs to her. A crazed woman lunges at him with a fork, but the girl shields him and begs him to get Nuwaka out. Once they're gone, the fork woman calls the girl a traitor, but she responds that she never agreed to join their twisted group and knocks her out. Elsewhere, Arisa finds Tamatsu, who tells her to watch over Nuwaka and rushes off again. Meanwhile, at the rooftop, the girl is now surrounded by weirdos in cosplay calling themselves Matrotica, claiming Akihabara belongs to them. Just when they're about to strip her down, Tamatsu arrives to rescue her but ends up getting fatally stabbed by one of the NPC villain. Without wasting a minute, she creates distance so she can ask Tamatsu if he'd risk himself for someone he barely knows. He tries to speak, but ends up dying, prompting the girl to kiss him. Suddenly, a flash of light envelops them both as Tamatsu transforms. He wakes up moments later, muttering that he almost met Eren Yeager in hell, causing the girl to admit that she used a technique called Transcend Providence to revive him. Before she can explain more, the bugged ones return. The fork woman attacks, but Tamatsu instinctively grabs and strips her, defeating her instantly. Shocked, he says his body moved on its own as the girl explains bugged ones are weak to fresh air, so removing their plot armors can eliminate them. Without hesitation, Tamatsu jumps into action, undressing more people than Johnny Sins ever did in his entire career. Once the battle ends, the girl introduces herself as Mitomi and tells him he can't return to a normal life. After a change of clothes, Mitomi explains that most of the bugged ones are taken over by low-class demons called Kurobugs, but then there are high-class demons called the Hazoku who can create high-class bugged ones. Tamatsu is shocked to learn that Mitomi is a Hazoku, while she continues to explain that there are some of them who seek to coexist with humans. She is one of them, as her clan has been defending Akihabara for nearly 300 years now. Just as Mitomi tells Tamatsu that he cannot leave Akihabara anymore, he tells her peace out and heads towards home, but Mitomi quickly grabs him back and states that he can't take this whole situation as a joke. However, Tamatsu refuses to listen and tries to run, but ends up getting smacked down by an invisible wall. Sighing, Mitomi tells Tamatsu that he can't leave Akihabara since the whole city is surrounded by a powerful force field that keeps the bugged ones trapped. To give Tamatsu a proof of his new identity as a bugged one, Mitomi tells him that his cheap-kin Kaneki hair is a sure sign that he is one of them. Just then, Nuwaka and Arisa arrive on the scene and the whole group decides to head somewhere safe, breaking the ice. Nuwaka asks Mitomi to explain what's going on when a light-skinned baddie arrives. She introduces herself as Professor Latu and points at Tamatsu, explaining that he almost died. However, luckily for him, Mitomi performed the Transcend Providence on him, turning him into a Hazoku underling. In simpler words, he is now a high-class bugged one. And thanks to Mitomi, he can defeat other bugged ones with a single blow. Hearing all this, Niwaka points out how their father always did say that Tomatsu was a failure as a human being. Tomatsu, hurt by the comment, changes the subject by asking Latu and Matomi what will happen if someone else removes his plot armor. Matomi behaves strangely upon hearing that question and tries to divert his attention, but Tomatsu sharply tells them that his chances to bag a goth mommy will go further down if he doesn't take off his clothes and bath. That's when Latu reveals that she has built a special shower that will ensure the safety of their nostrils. However, when Tomatsu opens the shower curtains, he is greeted by Arisa's Sydney Sweeney grade melons. Matomi smacks him down and tells Tomatsu to stop behaving like a creep. She also warns him that now that he is operating as her underling, other bugged ones will come for him. Therefore, he must join the vigilant group so he can defend himself. Curious, Niwaka asks her to elaborate, and Matomi explains that vigilant groups usually consist of normal human beings who are only interested in keeping Akihabara clean, but some of them are dedicated bugged ones hunters. After hearing everything, Niwaka asks what she should tell their parents. Tomatsu shrugs and says to just tell them he's off partying on Leonardo DiCaprio's yacht till he hits adulthood. In the meantime, Matomi's brain begins to disco dance since she didn't expect Tomatsu to live with her. Latu calms her down by saying that Tomatsu looks too much of a virgin to try something funny with her, so she shouldn't worry. Sighing, Matomi addresses him and states that he'll start working for her straight away. When morning comes, Matomi, Tomatsu, and Arisa begin patrolling the area. That's when it clicks to Matomi that she never asked Arisa to join, so she asks her why she is here. Arisa explains that she saw how she purchased all the figurines she broke yesterday and fixed them herself. Finding this cute, she decided on her own to help her and Tomatsu. Matomi feels embarrassed but apologizes to Arisa for hurling her baseball bat at her yesterday. In response, Arisa grabs her and tells Matomi that she is so cute that she wants to take her to Pound Town. Feeling inspired, Tomatsu announces that he has thought of a name for their group. Just then, the vigilant squad by the name of Chudori arrives and states that yesterday Akihabara was filled with chaos, and they have reasons to believe that Matomi was behind it. Tomatsu quickly rushes to defend Matomi, explaining they are a new vigilant squad by the name of Electric Mayonnaise, but Matomi grabs him by his collar and says she doesn't like the pace. A brawl starts between them, while the Chudori watches in shock until they finally yell at them to stop. They state their terms by explaining that every vigilant group in Akihabara has their own turf, but Matomi ignores them and leaves with Tomatsu. Now left alone, the leader called Avokanen tells her underlings that they must keep an eye on Electric Mayonnaise. Later that day, Tomatsu asks Matomi what is the goal of the Bugged Ones. She reveals that the Wicked Bugged Ones operate under an organization called Metrotica. They use Kirobugs to create more allies, as their true goal is to take control of Akihabara. Sighing, Tomatsu tells Matomi that it's time to talk money and asks how she will pay him. Matomi informs him that the research facility belonging to Latu usually gives her money to survive, but it barely covers rent and bills. Stunned, Tomatsu asks Matomi how exactly she expects him to live like a hipster, when suddenly an 11 feet tall baddie arrives and asks Tomatsu if he is looking for a job. Seeing her, Matomi calls her Momo, which excites Arisa because it turns out she is a popular free agent maid who performs legendary acts. Momo shifts her focus back on the unemployed loser and tells Tomatsu she knows just the place for him. A few minutes later, they arrive at Mashiro's Anything Goes agency, where Mashiro gives Tomatsu a pamphlet of a job opening. They arrive at a military-themed cafe, which excites Tomatsu, who is eager to work here. But then suddenly, a bunch of Kurobugs latch on to the customers. In the meantime, Matomi unveils a remote control made by Latu to detect bugged ones and learns that the owner of the cafe is actually a high-class bugged one. With Tomatsu and Arisa, she tries to take down the cafe boss, but ends up taking a quick retreat when his lackeys fire bullets that can burn their plot armor. As they seek shelter, they are once again greeted by the Chudori. Glancing at Matomi and Tomatsu's revealing outfits, the Chudori accuse them of throwing a wild Bonnie Blue-themed party. But when Matomi explains they are surrounded by the bugged ones, they look at her like she is a loony. Matomi now gets irritated and tells the Chudori they can believe her or not, but the truth is Akihabara is in danger. Arisa jumps in the middle of the conversation and suffocates the leader with her chest pillows. This turns her mind to mush and she agrees to help them out. With that, the Chudori and Electric Mayo charge at the cafe boss and his underlings. Matomi blushes, feeling delighted by the fact that she has made allies, and dives into the battle while Tomatsu single-handedly takes down the cafe boss. After celebrating a little, Tomatsu is surprised to learn that the cafe boss has vanished. That's when Matomi reveals that the lesser bugged ones possessed by a Kurobug will revert to their human life, but high-class bugged ones and the Hozoku will evaporate if their plot armors are taken away. Hearing this, Tomatsu becomes silent as Matomi tells him that he will also disappear forever if he's disrobed. She apologizes for pushing him in this life when suddenly Tomatsu yells at her, stating that he should just make the most of his little life so he has no guilt when someone snatches away his clothes. With that, he tells Metomi he is going to find himself a job while she is left thinking that Tomatsu is truly the 8th wonder of the world. The next day, Tomatsu creeps up on his sister and finds her hypnotized by the television screen. When he calls her out, Niwaka explains that she is watching Shiotalo's concert. Not knowing who that is, Tomatsu looks for help when Arisa spawns out of thin air, explaining that Shiotalo is basically the Taylor Swift for weaves, as she is a popular idol of Akihabara. As Tomatsu looks at Shiotalo singing, he suddenly starts feeling fireworks in his ween. The following day, he dresses up as a die-hard Shiotalo simp and attends her concert. When he returns home, he gets scolded by Metomi since he had patrolling to do. Shrugging away her anger, she tells Tomatsu they can still finish their patrolling for the day, but he dismisses her by saying he wants to watch Shiotalo's Twitch stream. Now pissed off, Metomi tells Tomatsu that he is acting like one of those Pokemon simp, and it's disgusting. But as always, Tomatsu ignores her and gushes about how cool Shiotalo is, which sends Metomi off the rails, so she goes to Five Guys to fill herself up. While stuffing her mouth, Metomi recalls the day she said bonjour to Tomatsu's lips and feels shy and regretful for resurrecting him. In the meantime, Tomatsu sits in a maid cafe, jamming to Shiotalo's songs when a man called Kaga arrives and asks him what he's up to. Tomatsu reveals he discovered this really cool idol and has been her #1 glazer since then. Noticing his crappy earphones, Kaga tells him to try his earphones, which will elevate his experience, and sure enough, Tomatsu finds himself completely sucked in by the quality of the earphones. Without wasting a second, he heads to buy quality earphones but realizes the good ones cost more than his entire existence. Yet despite being a complete bum, Tomatsu spends all his savings on buying headphones and a vinyl set. Later, at home, he shares with the girls that after spending all that money, he realized that Shiotalo sounds the best at her live concert. That night when he returns from another concert, Tomatsu is greeted by his credit card bill. Seeing the money he owes to the bank, he realizes he desperately needs a job, so he heads to Mashiro's Anything Goes agency. Tomatsu reveals his predicament to Mashiro, explaining he is willing to do anything to make good money. Hearing this, Mashiro's face darkens as he tells Tomatsu he has just the right job for him. Elsewhere, Metomi expresses her frustration with Tomatsu and his side quests. Niwaka then reveals to her how her brother has always been like this. Once he gets fixated on one thing, he forgets everything else. Arisa chimes in, sharing how she understands Tomatsu's fixation on idols as they are very charming. When she reveals her own dream of becoming an idol, a random lady appears in front of them and asks if they'd like to become an idol. And since the trio have an Ike of a brick, they follow the strange woman to a shop where they are given her business card. Arisa is instantly excited upon learning she is the Benekage, a famous idol of the past. Hearing Arisa praise her, Benekage thanks her and states they have exactly what it takes to be an idol. Meanwhile, Niwaka and Metomi are on the fence as they try to tell Benekage that it's all too sudden, but Arisa shuts them up and tells Benekage they are ready to do whatever it takes. Without further ado, Benekage takes them to her studio where she gives them a group name called Manias. Once that is out of the way, she forces them to work out while her cameraman, Nice, captures their milkers doing the Checha slide. In the meantime, Tomatsu takes on every job that he can find to pay off his debts. Once the girls are done working out, they are then forced to give sloppy toppies to suspiciously shaped food. Fed up, they ask why they are doing stuff like this, prompting Nice to assure them that it's all for their music video. Being the gullible little girls they are, they believe Nice, who then asks them to wear swimsuits. Once they change into their swimwears, Niwaka asks Nice why there are smashed bros waiting for them with a mattress. As always, Nice assures them that this is how Justin Bieber made it to the top and then asks the girls to pose for him. However, it all goes south for Benekage and Nice when they ask the girls to remove their plot armors. Niwaka and Metomi refuse at once, stating that they aren't auditioning for the Bop House. Benekage discards her friendly act and tells them that if they don't participate willingly, they'll have to use force. With that, both her and Nice remove their wigs, revealing they are actually bugged ones. Metomi acts fast and tells Niwaka to run, knowing she is the weakest of them all. However, when the Kura bugs surround her, Niwaka calls for her brother, who spawns out of thin air, revealing that he was working as a janitor here. Benekage lunges at him, but Tomatsu acts faster, stripping her bare. In the meantime, Metomi realizes that Nice is a high-class bugged one and focuses her energy on taking him out. However, he proves too overpowered for her, prompting Tomatsu to join in. Using his hurricane fist, he disrobes Nice, making him vanish into thin air. Later that day, the girls inform Benekage that she was hijacked by a high-class bugged one who made her behave like a pimp. Hearing this, Benekage thanks them and insists on making them proper idols. The girls agree and record a song that could make a coma patient sit up to press stop. The next day, Tomatsu embarks on another side quest by fixing up an antenna for better radio services. Niwaka then informs the girls that this isn't something new, as Tomatsu has always had an antenna in their house. Later on, Tamatsu, Arisa, and Nuwaka camp out in a manga store where they act like the Shia just to get their hands on a manga. However, once Arisa manages to grab the manga, Tamatsu gets mad at her, stating they could have gotten it for cheaper. Arisa blames it on the unclear audio coming from the transceiver, which motivates Tamatsu to take a trip down a shop selling communication devices. While he geeks out over the gadgets, Mitomi points out that they don't need to act like boomers buying transceivers when they have smartphones. Tamatsu, clearly offended, tells her that using a transceiver isn't for amateurs as it takes years of training to catch radio waves properly. Mitomi sighs, knowing there is no point arguing with a boy who behaves like the dudes who believe the earth is flat. Suddenly, a deafening sound erupts from every radio, and within seconds, all communication devices across the city explode, leaving everyone in confusion. Tamatsu and the gang step out of the store and find a fun-sized girl in a lab coat standing on the Akihabara Tower. Noticing the Kuro bugs around her, they instantly realize she is a bugged one. The girl then reveals that she is using her special bugged one waves to destroy all communication devices as an act of revenge. Enraged, Tamatsu, Arisa, and Metomi run towards the tower, but the little devil unleashes a microwave attack that destroys their clothes. Not wanting to die, the gang rushes to seek cover as the mad girl cackles like a maniac. Arriving back at the base, Latu admits that their new opponent is smart and dangerous. Nuwaka, who had been patching up Tamatsu, reveals to her that Akihabara is in total chaos right now. Sighing, Tamatsu states they should try and destroy the tower, but Metomi reminds him they can't get closer to it. When Arisa loudly recalls that their new enemy is a mad scientist girl, Latu suddenly gets up, revealing that it might be someone she knows from her Tsubaka days. Confused, Tamatsu asks what's going on, causing Metomi to disclose that Latu was once working as a researcher in the science center located in Tsubaka. That's when Latu discloses that, back in the day, all the world-renowned scientists were working in Tsubaka. Although the bugged ones weren't as active as they are now, it was widely believed that they were operating behind the scenes. During that time, Latu was collaborating with a brilliant scientist named Denko. Both of them worked under the supervision of Professor Yagyuda, who had a deep interest in investigating paranormal phenomena. Together, the trio discovered that the bugged ones emitted a faint low-frequency radio wave. To study this signal more closely and protect the people of Akihabara, they came up with the idea of building a second Tokyo Tower right in the heart of Akihabara, but since no one was willing to fund the project, Yagyuda and Denko poured in their own savings to construct the tower. They worked tirelessly for months only to find out in the end that the government had already built a tower in Akihabara without informing them. Hearing this, Arisa bursts out laughing, while Latu insists that Professor Yagyuda is still the only person who can help them crack the current case. The only problem is he's living off the grid in Brazil, and with the only tower in Akihabara now hijacked, they can't use phones or emails to contact him. Tamatsu then declares that it's time to use radio since it's the one medium that can't be hacked. However, Mitomi points out that Brazil is halfway across the globe and questions whether radio waves can even travel that far. Tamatsu brushes off her concern, confidently claiming that with him on the team, anything is possible. Later that evening, Tamatsu and Latu set up the equipment needed for long-distance transmission. Yet despite having the right tools, Latu explains that radio communication over such a vast distance is unpredictable, and it all depends on atmospheric conditions and a bit of luck. The following day, Momo drops by and finds Tamatsu and the gang in a bit of a pickle. Sensing the tension, she casually offers them pizza to lighten the mood and then starts tinkering with the radio equipment. To everyone's surprise, her meddling somehow manages to connect them with Professor Yagyuda. However, since the communication was done through Morse code, all they receive is a cryptic sequence starting with Onk. Puzzled, the group begins scratching their heads in confusion until Latu suddenly realizes exactly what her old professor meant. Meanwhile, the next day, Denko finds herself lamenting how utterly bored she is until Tamatsu and his team make a dramatic entrance, clad head to toe in armor made entirely of aluminum foil. To her shock, their strange outfits completely disable her microwave-based device, which she had designed to strip opponents of their clothing. It turns out that the Morse code from Yagyuda was pointing toward aluminum, a material known to block out radio waves. Inspired by this, Latu devised a suit made from 300 millimeters of layered aluminum, enabling the Electric Mayonnaise team to safely dismantle the bugged one's hijacked tower. Back on the scene, Tamatsu, Arisa, and Metomi storm the tower, working together to disable its power. In a swift move, Tamatsu snatches away Denko's plot armor, effectively removing the influence of the bugged ones from her. With the tower finally dismantled, Latu turns to Denko and gently asks why she had joined the bugged ones in the first place. While crying, Denko begins to share her story that when she was about to yeet herself, a mysterious woman approached her. The moment their hands touched, Denko felt herself bewitched, and before she knew it, she was helping spread chaos in Akihabara. Overcome with guilt, Denko breaks down, causing Latu to pick her up and promises to help clear her name. The next day, Akihabara gradually returns to normal and Tomatsu decides to channel his energy into launching an FM radio show, and much to the girls' annoyance, he pushes them to join him in another lame side quest. The next morning, Tomatsu strips off girls in a game when Nuwaka asks him why he is acting like a Discord mod, puffing his chest. Tomatsu lies by saying he is doing it so that he can face the bugged one's head on. He also hands her some cash just so he could goon in peace, and once he is done, he decides to play Street Fighter 2. In the middle of playing solo, Tomatsu sees a kid joining in. Filled with dark thoughts, he begins planning on beating the kid but ends up getting owned by him. After facing such a humiliating defeat, Tomatsu complains that it must be the freaking machine whenever the gamer girl tells him to stop blaming the machine when he is a complete noob. With that, she heads out, leaving Tomatsu speechless. In the meantime, Nuwaka owns the Crane Machine game, collecting a handful of plushies and shows it to Tomatsu when suddenly a mysterious crane spawns and kidnaps her. The gamer girl arrives on the scene, mocking Tomatsu for not being able to do anything while his sister was taken away from him. At that moment, he realizes she has something to do with kidnapping, but before he can confront her, she disappears. Returning to the base, the gang receives a letter, stating that if they want Nuwaka back then, they must join a tournament for Street Fighter that's held tomorrow. After digging some more, they learn that the tournament is happening on a huge level with famous gamers competing in it, where the final winner will get to compete against Matsuko. When Matomi asks who that is, Arisa pulls up a picture of her, revealing that she is the prettiest and the strongest gamer girl of this era, but as Tomatsu sees her, he instantly realizes that this is the same girl he met earlier. As they watch her gameplay, they reach a conclusion that Matsuko has to be a bugged one to be playing that good. Putting that aside, Matomi asks Tomatsu if he will be able to defeat someone like her when Arisa points out that before he can even compete with Matsuko, he'll have to face other professional gamers. Hearing this, Tomatsu admits that he is not good at games at all. This pushes Arisa to announce a training session where he'll be putting his back into playing games. Tomatsu agrees, thinking that he wouldn't be a good bro if he can't even save his sister. That's when Latu arrives, revealing that she knew this day would come and that's why she has prepared a game training machine. That afternoon, Tomatsu finds himself running in a hamster wheel. When Matomi asks how this is supposed to help, Latu tells her to shut it and trust her. Up next, she introduces a baseball machine which only works to assault Tomatsu further. After surviving the medieval torture training session, Tomatsu finds himself with rock-hard abs, ready to take on Matsuko. At the tournament, the girls point out how the other gamers look like they play Clash of Clans. Latu agrees and tells Tomatsu that he'll easily be able to beat them since they're not real gamers. Yet to everyone's dismay, Tomatsu takes the L in the first round. As a result, he is sent to compete against other noobs who had lost the matches. Once he manages to win against them, he is given the opportunity to face Matsuko. In the first round, Tomatsu manages to secure victory for himself. As his friends cheer for him, a bunch of NPCs reveal to them that Matsuko always loses the first rounds so she can study her opponents better. During round 2, she unleashes her true gaming skills, making Tomatsu realize just how much of a loser he is. To his surprise, Matsuko tells him that he is a good player as well. He just needs to be pushed to his limits. With that, she starts taking off her clothes so the Shane can push her to win more rounds. Tomatsu is utterly confused by that logic, but in order to win Nuwaka back, he starts to strip as well. The battle becomes intense and at last, Tomatsu manages to defeat Matsuko with his craziness. After the match, Matsuko shakes Tomatsu's hand who demands Nuwaka back, but she explains that she never had her. That's when the referee reveals that he was actually the bugged one who kidnapped Nuwaka. Enraged, Tomatsu punches him and later finds Nuwaka completely chilling in a game room. Later on, Tomatsu opens his computer and is greeted by the cursed blue screen. Sighing in annoyance, he wonders if it's time to get a new computer. Luckily for him, a tech company by the name of MoffMap announces a special deal for the denizens of Akihabara where they can get peace at low prices and great specs. However, when Tomatsu finds the entire population of Akihabara buying the same computer as him, he starts getting an ick. Suddenly, Kage spawns out of nowhere and tells Tomatsu to just build his own P as it will fulfill his dream of being different from the others. Yet, despite finding the idea agreeable, Tomatsu tells him that he is a moron and can't build a piece on his own. Luckily, Kage offers to help him. As they start searching for separate parts, Kage reacts weirdly when he sees a boy rummaging through the piles of different parts. Once he leaves the area, Kage reveals to Tomatsu that the boy they saw is Jackal, the parts hunter who goes from one shop to another looking for great parts. And once he finds the item he's looking for, he hides it under a pile of other parts, then goes through every store and buys what he's looking from the cheapest store. With that, Kage announces they should follow Jackal so they can get the best deal, but Tomatsu points out that if they do this, they'll get reincarnated as cockroaches in their next life. Kage, however, states that if he wants to build a P, he should quit acting like a wussy. That afternoon, Tomatsu thanks Kage for helping him buy everything that he needed and heads home. However, when he tries to boot up the computer, he realizes he never got an operating system. Just then, Latu magically appears and tells him to try the O's that she developed and unveils Latux, an A-driven autonomous O's. After installing it, Tomatsu is psyched to find the O's communicating with him. Latu then pushes him to give Latux voice commands, but he suddenly starts feeling shy, so Latu asks him to start by giving Latux a personalized name. After a few seconds, Tomatsu decides to call the O's Puko. Latux instantly responds to the name, making Tomatsu super happy. That night, the girls observe Tomatsu obsessing over Puko, and while Nuwaka and Arisa are happy for him, Mitomi expresses annoyance over Tomatsu's newfound toy. Arisa instantly calls her out by saying she is just jealous that Tomatsu prefers Puko over her. Flushed and embarrassed, Mitomi lies and tells Arisa that she is annoyed because Tomatsu is neglecting patrolling duty again. To get away from Arisa's watchful eyes, Mitomi orders Tomatsu to go out patrolling with her. However, before leaving, he says that he wants to take Puko with him. Latu notes this but says nothing. On the other hand, Mitomi realizes that Tomatsu is distracted because he misses Puko. That night, when he returns home, Tomatsu is greeted by Puko 2.0, shocked. He asks what's going on, and Puko reveals that she can now move around and come with him wherever he goes. Latu also reveals that she gave Puko arms so she can help him goon. Tomatsu, delighted by this, hugs Puko while Mitomi looks at him with sadness. The following day, she calls Tomatsu for patrolling duty, but is surprised to learn that he already went out with Puko. Meanwhile, together with his walking computer, Tomatsu has a jolly good day. They decide to take a break at a maid cafe where Puko observes everyone staring at her. When she voices this out to Tomatsu, he tells her that it's because she's cute and everyone wants to diddle her motherboard, which makes Puko shy, causing her to overheat. Meanwhile, in the adjacent cafe, Arisa asks Mitomi why they're not patrolling with Tomatsu. She lies and says it's more efficient like this. That night, while Tomatsu plays shogi with Puko, Arisa arrives home, informing everyone that Akihabara is in danger. Latu asks Puko to open a news channel, and they find out MothMap pieces are turning into robots and causing trouble. Without any delay, they head to the shop and are greeted by the head of MothMap, Lori. At first, she pretends to be an innocent woman, but then quickly removes her guise, revealing she is a bugged one. Lori proudly declares that she used her robots disguised as PCs to control Akihabara. With that, she sends a few bugged ones at the gang, but Tomatsu easily strips them and renders them useless. Before Lori can do something else, Tomatsu removes her plot armor, making her disappear. Suddenly, Latu calls them through Puko, informing the gang to head outside. When they go outside, Tomatsu, Arisa, and Mitomi are shocked to see all the MothMap pieces gathering up in the sky. They simultaneously yell fusion and become a giant P robot, which plays a video of Lori saying that even though she is dead, she will make sure Akihabara is under her control. With that, the robot starts beating the living daylights out of Arisa and Mitomi, but before it can hurt Tomatsu, he unplugs his charging wire. To everyone's horror, the robot reveals it'll self-destruct and blow up Akihabara. Just then, Puko arrives and uses her maximum strength to take the evil robot in space, where it self-destructs, taking Puko with it. That night, Tomatsu mourns his friend when Latu arrives to check up on him. Tomatsu asks her why Puko would sacrifice herself for Akihabara, and she reveals that Puko could detect his love for this city, that's why she chose to protect Akihabara. Hearing this, Tomatsu looks up at the sky, still grieving the loss of a good friend. To cope with his loss, Tomatsu takes naughty pictures of a poor figurine. However, while trying to capture her yummy bits, he ends up breaking the doll. Suddenly, Nuwaka enters the room and recoils in horror, seeing her favorite figurine broken into pieces. She scolds Tomatsu, telling him how it was hard to get this limited edition figurine, but he waves it off and tells Nuwaka that they can get it from eBay. Feeling upset, she rants about how he would have rained hell on her if she had done something like this, but as always, Tomatsu continues to ignore her until she runs out of the room in anger. Seeing this, Arisa and Mitomi reprimand Tomatsu, telling him that he should have at least apologized as the figurine appeared important to Nuwaka. In response, he shows them an auction site, stating that he has already launched a search to get the same figurine for Nuwaka. Meanwhile, in Dubai, a Saudi prince decides to up the bid for the figurine, making Tomatsu cry in poverty. Without wasting time, he heads to Mishiro's Anything Goes agency to look for good short-term jobs. Seeing him, Mishiro instantly hooks him up with a job at a cafe for maids and butlers. However, when Tomatsu goes in for the interview, he is asked by the boss why he wants to join their cafe. He lies and says he has always been passionate about working in the service industry, but the boss calls him out and tells Tomatsu that he knows he's here because of the pay. Caught off guard, Tomatsu laughs nervously, prompting the boss to assure him that he doesn't care why he's here because soon he'll realize some things are more valuable than money. Despite his skepticism, Tomatsu wears the butler uniform and joins the team. Just when he starts feeling awkward in the cringe uniform, the lead butler, Jero, assures him he looks mad drippy. Tomatsu thanks him and then asks why there's a heart next to his name card. Lead maid Kin arrives and informs Tomatsu that the hearts indicate points. Everyone starts with 1 heart, and as they level up, they receive more hearts. With that, Jiro claps and orders all the workers to line up so they can practice their customer care phrases. Tomatsu watches in horror at how far these people will go to appease the customer, prompting Jiro to scold him for not participating. Suddenly, the boss arrives and loudly asks the employees if they are ready for today's task. Hearing this, they all go feral, begging to be picked for this mysterious task. Kin even gets on all fours to show the boss she's willing to go down the naughty road like your mama, leaking her determination. The boss assigns her the task while Tomatsu wonders just how high the bills can be for them to be acting like complete doormats. That night, Tomatsu arrives home, completely beaten by his new job. Mitomi arrives to check up on him, but ends up leaving in frustration when Tomatsu refuses to go patrolling with her. The next day, he gives it his all to appease the customers, earning their approval. This pleases him as well, and later Kin teases him for getting praised by the customers. Just then, Jiro calls him to take a photo of him and a birthday girl. Tomatsu, being a nerd, tells Jiro he'll use his professional camera instead of phone to make this photo even better. Impressed, Jiro states that from now on, he's their special photographer. That night, when the cafe closes down, the boss comes to praise Tomatsu, who admits that seeing customers happy makes him feel happy as well. Pleased to hear this, the boss adds a heart on his name tag, and all his colleagues celebrate his success by throwing him up in the air. Tomatsu finds himself on cloud 9 that night, but Mitomi notices that he is working way too late and worries for his well-being. Finally, payday arrives and Tomatsu becomes excited to receive the big bucks he was promised. To his dismay, when he opens the envelope, he finds notes of thank yous instead of crisp bills. Confused, he asks Kin and Jiro what sort of bees is this, and they happily reveal that the thank you notes represent the praises he received from their customers. In the meantime, Nuwaka enters Tomatsu's room but gets told by Mitomi that he's working out late again. Feeling sad, she admits that she wants to make up with her brother and recalls their past, where she feels proud to have Tomatsu as her brother. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Tomatsu is completely drained and ends up breaking a plate. He gets all panicky and apologizes to Kin, who tells him that he isn't working hard enough. In the end, Tomatsu breaks down while Kin gently pats his back. Jiro also arrives and reassures him that he's not alone, as they're all one big happy family. Suddenly, Tomatsu is lifted in the air again, and this time, he forgets all his misery, causing him to work 10 times more in the following days. 1 week later, the girls worry for Tomatsu when suddenly Arisa shows them a picture of him in a magazine where he looks completely drained and unhealthy. Without further ado, they storm the cafe, where they're horrified to see Tomatsu in a maid outfit. When they tell him to quit his app, he tells them that working here was his lifelong dream. Ticked off, Nuwaka steps forward and slaps the crap out of Tomatsu, tearfully telling him to snap out. When that doesn't do it, she takes Mitomi's baseball bat and smashes that on Tomatsu's face. Seeing him brutally injured, Nuwaka cradles Tomatsu in her arms and reminds him that his dream is to write his own novel, which will be so famous that it'll get its own anime, allowing him to live like Jeff Bezos for the remainder of his life. Hearing Bezos' name, Tomatsu instantly returns to his usual self, making everyone happy. Just then, the boss makes a dramatic entrance, seeing Tomatsu back to normal. He rips off his wig, revealing he's actually a bugged one who plotted to conquer Akihabara through his sinister maid and butler cafe. Without wasting a beat, he commands his staff to attack Electric Mayonnaise. Mitomi swiftly jumps into action and disrobes them, only for Tomatsu to reveal that they're not bugged ones at all, just regular brainwashed civilians. Puzzled, Mitomi asks what they should do now. That's when Arisa cracks her knuckles and unveils her secret fist jutsu, flattening the entire crew in seconds. But the boss grabs Nuwaka and pulls her against him like a human shield. With a twisted grin, he dares them to strip him, knowing they'd have to strip Nuwaka first. The group freezes, giving the lurking Kurobugs just enough time to swipe their plot armor. Desperate, Nuwaka screams for Tomatsu to help her. With laser focus, Tomatsu charges forward, strips both the boss and Nuwaka in one motion, but in a blink, throws a blanket over his sister just as the boss vanishes into thin air. Later that evening, a calmer Nuwaka apologizes for being harsh. Tomatsu simply smiles and hands her a brand new figurine, instantly lifting her spirits. The next day, when the gang is out patrolling, Tomatsu pouts, stating that while he is glad his mom sent food, he is shocked to learn that their crappy hideout doesn't even have a rice cooker. Arisa points out that it does make sense given how Mitomi doesn't cook at all. Upon being called out, Mitomi states that she specializes in eating, not cooking. At that moment, Tomatsu proudly reveals that he can cook, but Nuwaka quickly tells everyone to never let this guy cook. Turns out, whenever Tomatsu gets cooking, he ends up unleashing his inner Gordon Ramsay Pro Max that takes a whole week to make a simple curry. Arisa chimes in confidently, assuring everyone that as long as she's around, no one's going hungry because she knows how to make curry. The curry munchers immediately brighten up, only to be distracted by a large crowd gathering outside a nearby shop. Curious, the group watches as a man strolls by with towering piles of cardboard balanced on his head. Arisa's eyes suddenly widen in shock as she calls the man her master. Later, the group questions whether she actually knows the bizarre man. Without hesitation, Arisa confirms he's definitely her kung fu master from her training days in China. Tomatsu and the others admit they've always wondered about her backstory, prompting Arisa to finally spill the details. She reveals that 10 years ago, she graduated from the ultimate university in the US. Thanks to her daddy's money, she embarked on a world tour in search of her true calling. In India, she learned to make a curry so intense it could give people instant diarrhea. In Britain, she studied the art of humor. In Africa, she explored her wild side. And in China, she met the master who trained not only her body, but also sharpened her mind. Throughout their time together, she faced countless challenges, but her master never let her give up, pushing her to grow stronger every day. And once she had learned martial arts, she came to Japan to experience life as a sweaty otaku. After hearing Arisa's life story, Niwaka asks why her master is here in Japan, prompting her to reveal that he told her once he wished to bring his family to Japan for a tour. The gang finally arrives at the shop selling rice cookers, but are appalled to learn that every single rice cooker has already been purchased. Suddenly, they see Arisa's master in the store, causing the manager to reveal that it is actually him who purchased all the rice cookers. Ticked off, Tomatsu tries to talk to him, but the man ignores his existence like your father ignores yours.
Emotional, damn it!
Arisa joins in, greeting her master, but also gets treated like she's air. Suddenly, a woman with delicious fun bags appears by the master's side, prompting Arisa to ask her if she knows him. The woman seductively clings to the master, announcing that she's the one managing him and introduces herself as Diva. At the mention of the name, Arisa frantically tells the gang that Diva is no ordinary woman. She's a notorious promoter who mysteriously emerged in the world of martial arts. Not only did she support her fighters outside the ring, but she occasionally entered the arena herself and steal the championship title for herself. Baffled, Mitomi asks what someone like her is doing with Arisa's master. Diva casually reveals that she's using him to help her conquer Akihabara. With a wicked smirk, she lays out her plan to buy cheap, duty-free goods as foreigners then resell them at full price to unsuspecting Japanese customers. The goal? Create enough economic chaos to seize control of Akihabara. Furious, Tomatsu points at her and accuses her of being a bugged one. Without hesitation, Diva confirms it proudly, flaunting her true nature. In the same breath, she also exposes Arisa's beloved master as another bugged one, revealing that he's been loyally helping her collect rice cookers for their plot. With that, she asks the master to take down the electric mayonnaise for her, before Tomatsu can jump in to defeat him. Arisa tries to get through her master using words. However, the master unleashes his Talk no Jutsu and punches Arisa in the gut. Diva casually tells them this isn't Naruto pushing the gang to fight with their fists. But when Mitomi tries to face the master, he ends up getting thrown in a washing machine. With Tomatsu also being owned by the master, Arisa decides to face her former teacher. However, just when the battle begins, the store manager arrives and tells them that if they don't quit haggling in the store, he'll have to spank them. Stepping outside, Diva claims that she can't let this fight fizzle out, so she will find a venue where Arisa and the master can fight till death. That night, all of Akihabara gathers to witness the highly anticipated showdown between the master and Arisa. The event is hosted by Kage, who's joined by the overenthusiastic media personality Masato, turning the tournament into a grand event. As the match begins, Arisa and the master waste no time, unleashing their full strength. The fight is intense and evenly matched until Diva suddenly jumps in and attacks Arisa mid-battle. Outraged, Tomatsu calls her a cheater, but Diva smugly replies that there are no rules in this tournament, so anything goes. She then urges the master to finish the fight, but he hesitates. That's when Diva reveals her trump card, a video showing the master's family being held hostage by the Kurobugs. Forced into manual labor, reluctantly, the master obeys and launches a fierce attack on Arisa, leaving her barely able to stand. Just when it seems over, Arisa makes a comeback and suffocates the master's face with her vertical lips, hoping the scent of her cat will throw him off. It almost works until Diva plays yet another hostage video, this time showing Mitomi and Niwaka tied up in the dressing room. Arisa freezes, torn between the fight and her friends. Taking advantage of her hesitation, the master spreads her legs in a humiliating move designed to break her spirit. Realizing Arisa is in trouble, Tomatsu races backstage and rescues Mitomi and Niwaka just in time. Seeing her friends safe, Arisa snaps back into action and delivers a powerful strike that knocks the master down, but the force leaves her immobile as well. Diva seizes the moment, storms the ring, and tosses the master a sword, demanding he finish Arisa for good. But instead of following her orders, the master turns on Diva and flings her out of the ring. He then turns to Arisa and says the fight isn't over. With her last ounce of strength, Arisa unleashes her final move, death by crushed nuts. The master drops, paralyzed from the impact. Arisa wastes no time in stripping him, officially winning the match. Before she can even celebrate, Diva returns out of nowhere and smashes a metal chair over her like it's a Wii event. Tomatsu rushes in, and together with Arisa, they remove Diva's plot armor, causing her to vanish for good. After the intense battle with Diva, Arisa decides to unwind by streaming herself opening packs of trading cards. With a hopeful grin, she tells her viewers she's aiming to pull something rare. However, as she rips through stack after stack, the excitement drains from her face. With nothing but common cards in hand, she slumps forward and mutters that her luck is no better than the idiot watching this recap. A while later, Tomatsu returns home and finds Arisa unconscious next to the scattered cards. When he asks what happened, she explains her miserable card haul. Tomatsu notices there's still one unopened stack left and decides to open it himself. To Arisa's complete shock, the final pack contains a super rare card. Overjoyed, Arisa playfully calls Tomatsu her lucky charm and insists he must have some kind of hidden power to sniff out legendary pulls. Later that day, Tomatsu sits, surrounded by cards, when Kage shows up. His eyes immediately land on the familiar designs of the Battle Creature series, and he casually asks if Tomatsu is a fan. Tomatsu admits that he was really into the game once but eventually lost interest only to get pulled back in again recently. Kage then reveals that he used to build entire decks using nothing but banned cards. Unimpressed, Tomatsu tells him that he can't play official tournaments using banned cards, but Kage shrugs, stating that defeating kids was the only goal he had in mind. Their attention is suddenly drawn towards their surroundings as they find a bunch of simps glazing different OnlyFans models. Among them is the Chudora group, where the two male members eagerly simp for an e-girl named Nunu, which ticks off the leader and another female member. Fed up by this, Tomatsu heads home, revealing everything to his friends. Mitomi instantly calls the Chudori Vigilant group a total failure for fighting over something so stupid. Suddenly, Nuwaka perks up, realizing that this is a common example of the phenomenon called Circura, which happens when a new girl joins a group and dismantles the pre-existing friendships. Disappointed, Tomatsu demands to know where she picked up such idiotic nonsense when Arisa interrupts by pulling up a video of Masato, reporting that several Vigilant groups have disbanded because random hoes joined in. Sighing, Arisa admits that virgin losers who have never seen women before are prone to losing their minds when they get a bit of attention from them. However, Mitomi points at how odd it is to see random girls suddenly join Vigilant groups. As always, Latu appears showing the gang a pamphlet by the Princess Company whose entire motto is to send beautiful girls into Vigilant groups. Mitomi's spidey senses begin to tingle as she wonders out loud if this could be the work of the bugged ones. Tomatsu agrees and states that it's time to bust in. Arriving at the location, they learn that the Princess Company is in the same building as the cafe Tomatsu worked in. Upon entering, they are greeted by Victoria's Secret models. The president of the company, Masada, introduces himself, making Arisa's heart flutter. She instantly expresses that she wants to shibboink him since he's young and rich. Tomatsu, feeling jealous, tells Arisa that a man's worth isn't tied to how fat his wallet is. Annoyed by their lack of focus, Mitomi tells them to focus as Masada could be a bugged one. To their surprise, he admits, stating that he tried to disband the Vigilant groups by putting up booby traps in the literal sense. Hearing the confession, Arisa gets sad, realizing she'll never get to be a stay-at-home wife in this economy. Masada then sends his princesses to fight the electric mayonnaise, but they're easily taken care of. Feeling confident, Mitomi faces Masada, but he uses fingers and cuts her baseball and bottoms into pieces. He proudly tells them that they simply can't match him in terms of physical strength, so he proposes a card game which Tomatsu eagerly accepts. Soon, the entire Akihabara gathers to witness two ugly nerds play a card game. Mitomi watches from the sidelines, confused as to why they aren't just attacking Masada like normal protagonists. Arisa gets mad at Mitomi for being a normie and urges Tomatsu to defeat Masada. Since the game has no clear rules, only imaginative laws, Tomatsu uses the brain cells of 1,004 Chan users and manages to overwhelm Masada, forcing him to accept defeat. Later that day, the male members of the Chudori accept their wrongdoings, prompting the group to return to its former glory. The next morning, Mitomi shows up to wake Tomatsu for their patrol shift, only to find his room completely empty. Moments later, Arisa strolls in and casually mentions that Tomatsu left earlier to meet up with an old friend. Meanwhile, at a quiet cafe, Tomatsu chats with said friend, asking how life's been treating him until he suddenly notices something flickering and glitching beside the guy. Alarmed, Tomatsu leans in to warn him, but before he can say anything, the glitch morphs into a hot chick, and the friend reveals that this is his girl. Realizing even his chopped friend managed to bag a baddie, Tomatsu spirals into self-pity. Admitting the only romance he's known is with his right hand, the girls watch him from afar, wondering what has happened to him since he left the house happy. Mitomi shrugs, stating if it's Tomatsu, then it's probably something stupid bothering him. Overhearing this, Tomatsu yells at her that it's not something foolish and later reveals that he is dying to have a female companion. He also admits that he can't forgive his friend for getting a girlfriend before him. Shocked, Arisa whispers to Nuwaka how she always thought Tomatsu was committed to his two waifus. Matomi tries to be slick with it and tells Tomatsu that it's too bad he can't date her. He agrees, which makes her upset as he then wishes for a girl to fall out of the sky for him. Now annoyed, Matomi tells Tomatsu to shut up and focus on his patrolling duties, which only makes him whine even more. Sighing, she asks why he's suddenly making a fuss about not having a girlfriend, prompting Tomatsu to reveal that everyone is enjoying love except him. Feeling sorry for her brother, Nuwaka tells him that she doesn't mind being his girlfriend. However, Tomatsu replies that even though he's a disgusting weeb, he's not from Alabama, so he'll pass on that. Arisa then asks if he'd like to go out with her, causing Tomatsu to think about her as a girlfriend. Meanwhile, Nuwaka teases Matomi, saying that she would never want to go out with him, despite knowing her true feelings. Luckily, her reverse psychology works and Matomi orders Tomatsu to take her on a date. However, being a tsundere, she tells him that it's a fake date but happily grabs his hand and drags him to touch grass. While walking together, Tomatsu asks her what they should do on their date, causing Matomi to panic. That's when she receives a text from Nuwaka telling her to do all the things that make her happy. Without hesitation, she tells Tomatsu to take her to a good restaurant so they can eat yummy food. Meanwhile, Nuwaka and Arisa secretly spy on them from a distance. Later on, Matomi brings Tomatsu to her favorite restaurant selling curry. Curious, he asks her if this is Indian-style or Pakistani-style curry, but Matomi tells him that it's completely unique and urges him to just try it out for himself. As he takes a bite, fireworks go off in his head and he calls the curry delicious. Feeling confident, Matomi then takes him to a Chinese restaurant where Tomatsu is once again blown by the yummy Chinese cuisine. To Nuwaka and Arisa's dismay, they watch the couple going to yet another food spot for some fried chicken. Even Tomatsu is surprised to see Matomi eat multiple dishes. By midday, Tomatsu turns into Billie Eilish. Seeing him beat up, Matomi apologizes to Tomatsu, but he waves it off and tells her that now he can audition for Avatar, The Last Chairbender. Hearing this, Matomi grows serious, revealing that she has lived in Akihabara for a long time. There was once a time where there wasn't anything to eat. That's why, to make up for it, she eats a lot now. Understanding where she's coming from, Tomatsu tells Matomi that it's time to go to his favorite spot and brings her to a ramen shop. As they enter, the leader of Chudori falls in Tomatsu's lap, crying something about a greedy pig. Moments later, they see a man emptying bowls of ramen, preventing others from getting their orders. Latu, who had been in the shop, joins the duo when Tomatsu suddenly realizes that he knows the guy as Black Hole Kuroda, aka the world champion in eating corn dogs. Latu urges him to call out Kuroda, but when he does that, the pig tells him that he won't listen to him unless he defeats him in a food fight. Before Tomatsu can say anything, Matomi accepts the challenge in his place. Within seconds, a crowd of Akihabara civilians gathers to witness the ramen eating challenge between Matomi and Kuroda. As the battle kicks off, Matomi throws the ramen into the air and catches it with her chopsticks mid-fall, allowing it to cool down naturally, saving time. In an attempt to keep up, Kuroda dumps water into his bowl to reduce the taste, but this draws immediate disgust from the audience. Matomi criticizes him for disrespecting the food, but Kuroda brushes her off, insisting he's only here to win. As the match progresses, Kuroda unexpectedly takes the lead, alarming Matomi's friends, who realize the loser will have to cover the bill. Reacting quickly, Tomatsu calls for Latu's help and discreetly tosses ice cubes toward Matomi. Understanding the signal, she drops them into her ramen, cooling it down without diluting the flavor or disrespecting the dish. Observing this, Kuroda accuses her of being no different from him. However, the crowd soon realizes that Matomi's method preserves the integrity of the ramen, unlike Kuroda's watered-down soup. Eventually, Kuroda collapses from the strain, and Matomi secures victory in the obesity speedrun challenge. As Kuroda regains consciousness, Matomi offers forgiveness on the condition that he vows never to disrespect food again. That's when Kuroda reveals his true identity as a bugged one whose plan was to starve Akihabara by devouring all its food. He opens his mouth and begins to suck in everything around him, creating chaos. Thinking fast, Matsu hurls Latu's ice cooler at him, freezing him in place. Matomi then seizes the moment, leaps onto him, and strips his clothes off, causing him to vanish. Later that day, Tomatsu admits that he had a blast on this date when suddenly Matomi's stomach begins to grumble again. Hearing her belly roar, he grabs her hand and takes her to his favorite dessert shop. After her eventful date, Matomi pursues her idol career with Nuwaka and Arisa. While they are rehearsing, Tomatsu watches them over like a proud dad when suddenly the leader of Chudori yells at him to stop slacking. He apologizes weakly and says that since he's the producer of Manias, he had to oversee their rehearsal, but the leader scolds him, stating that he is a mere errand boy. Meanwhile, Benekage claps for the girls and assures them that they'll soon become Akihabara's rising stars once they prove themselves in the upcoming festival. Arisa, however, tells her that it's all thanks to her guidance, but she rejects the compliment and tells them that she remembers how hard they worked since their debut days. Nuwaka agrees, recalling how they had to wear flashy costumes to sell merchandise just so they could afford to keep their idol careers. Benekage then points at Mitomi, telling her that she has a lot of potential because whenever she sings, she looks like a girl in love. When she asks her if she has a special someone, Mitomi's mind instantly conjures up an image of Tomatsu, which turns her face as red as the spanked bottoms of a very naughty girl. Elsewhere, Tomatsu plasters some posters when Kage tells him to take a short break. They head to a restaurant, and since Kage agrees to pay, Tomatsu buys the most expensive item on the menu. They get to talking when Kage asks how he feels about the upcoming festival. Tomatsu admits that he thinks it's a good idea, given how the government is hosting it to promote Japanese culture to weebos across the world. He also cheerfully tells Kage that since he is a staff member, he will have early access to limited edition festival merchandise, which is sweet for a low-life, pathetic otaku. Unbeknownst to the guys, a mysterious girl observes them from afar with a wicked smile playing on her lips. The next day, a station master heads to work as usual, only to stop in his tracks when he sees a crowd gathered around something. Pushing through, he finds a tree, freshly chopped down, with a mysterious note lying beside it. Elsewhere, the manager of a rice cooker shop stumbles upon a pile of Pokeballs randomly dumped in his warehouse. A note next to them reads, "A gift from Electric Mayonnaise." All across Akihabara, the daily routines of ordinary citizens are thrown into chaos, and each time, the culprit leaves a message stating, "With love, Electric Mayonnaise." Meanwhile, Tomatsu works like a slave for the girls so they can be ready for their performance. All of a sudden, the Chudori arrive and place Tomatsu, Arisa, and Mitomi in handcuffs. Moments later, the trio is dragged before the special Akihabara Vigilant Court, where the Chudori accuse them of wreaking havoc across the city, especially with the Akihabara festival just around the corner. Caught off guard, the group insists they're innocent, but the leader isn't buying it. She presents a stack of evidence showing their supposed involvement in a string of chaotic pranks. Frustrated, Tomatsu fires back, claiming they're being framed. In response, the leader dramatically reveals a photo of the trio spray painting graffiti on Akihabara's walls. But the moment Tomatsu sees it, he calls them all a bunch of fools, pointing out that there's obviously imposters among us. Caught off guard, the vigilant group hesitantly admits the photo does seem a bit suspicious, but points out that the person posing as Mitomi is nearly indistinguishable. Even Arisa agrees that from the back it does resemble her. But Tomatsu stands his ground, insisting there's no way it's Mitomi as she's always with them. Now backed in a corner, the leader tells them that nobody cares about their opinions, so Tomatsu pats her head and assures her that they'll be back with evidence that proves their innocence. Later at the hideout, Tomatsu and the others are out of ideas on how to crack the case until Tomatsu gets an idea. That night, the masked girl arrives at the main stage with two hideous imposters of Tomatsu and Arisa, ready to sabotage the venue. But before they can act, the lights blaze on as Tomatsu and the girls step onto the stage, revealing themselves and declaring they had anticipated this move. He immediately identifies the imposters as bugged ones, and a fierce fight breaks out between the two groups, with the Og Electric Mayonnaise quickly realizing that their imposters possess unexpected strength, making the battle far more intense. However, in the end, Tomatsu and Arisa manage to defeat their imposters, but Mitomi faces trouble defeating hers. Luckily, her friends arrive in time and circle the last imposter, but before they can unveil her identity, she uses a smoke bomb and disappears. Knowing they don't have a way to clear Mitomi's name, they begin to despair when suddenly Latu appears, revealing she captured everything with her night vision camera. After presenting the evidence to the Chudori, Tomatsu assures them there are no hard feelings. The next day, during the Akihabara festival, the girls step on stage to perform only for the lights to abruptly shut off. Masato rushes in with breaking news: the festival has been officially cancelled. He then plays a broadcast from Minister Kiyoe, who announces that the event is unfit for a government project, condemning otaku culture as a disgrace to Japanese society. With that, she declares her intent to eradicate it by enforcing a complete ban on Akihabara. Later that day, Tomatsu receives a frantic call from Mitomi, asking for help against her imposter. When he arrives, he finds an unconscious Mitomi and bends down to help her, only for her to suddenly awaken and kiss him, triggering his transformation back into a human. Meanwhile, the real Mitomi receives a text from Tomatsu, asking her to meet him at the same spot. When she arrives, she finds Tomatsu hanging over the railing. Before she can reach him, he slips and falls into the river. In her office, Minister Kiyoe receives a suitcase full of cash from a mysterious woman accompanied by Masato. She informs them that thanks to the influence of Mitradika, their goal of purging Akihabara of dirty, sweaty otakus is finally within reach, and then launches into a rant about how she wants to send every weeb to the gas chambers so Japan can reclaim its former glory. Unmoved, the woman in black firmly reminds Kiyoe that Matrotica has no interest in her personal ideology and expects her to simply follow orders. Kiyoe agrees, then aggressively begins kissing the money-filled suitcase. As they step out of the office, the woman asks Masato if he captured everything. He points to the hidden camera in his tie and confirms that the entire conversation was recorded. The woman smirks, commenting that it's always smart to keep blackmail material on hand. With that, she orders the next phase of their plan into motion, sending Mitomi's imposter Yurame to deal with Mitomi and her friends. Meanwhile, back at the hideout, Tomatsu finally regains consciousness, much to the relief of the group. Without delay, the girls rush him to a nearby restaurant, insisting that he eat to regain his strength. Tomatsu thanks Momo for the food but is puzzled by the lack of customers. Momo explains that ever since the Akihabara ban was enacted, the government has been monitoring all establishments, forcing even maid cafes to abandon their usual uniforms for plain, ugly aprons. Frustrated, Tomatsu concludes that the bugged ones must be behind this. Lachu agrees, but points out that with the government involved, there's little they can do. Refusing to back down, Tomatsu declares that they can't let Akihabara fall into ruin and vows to personally defeat the bugged ones. That's when Mitomi gently stops him, revealing that he no longer can. Tomatsu, confused, asks what she means. Mitomi points to his now normal hair, explaining that he has reverted back to a regular human. She elaborates that he had received a trance in providence from her polar opposite, which made him return to his original form. With his powers gone, he no longer has a reason to stay in Akihabara, but Tomatsu refuses and says he can't abandon the city in its current state, especially with Yurame still out there. Mitomi pushes back, insisting it's her duty to fight now, and that as a regular human, he'll only be a burden. Frustrated, Tomatsu demands she give his powers back, but she remains silent. The tension thickens until Larissa steps in to calm everyone down. Just then, a group of suited men burst into the restaurant, startling everyone. To their surprise, the men kneel before Larissa and politely ask her to return home. When the others demand an explanation, their leader, who looks like The Rock, says they're under direct orders from Goldrich Diamond XIII, CEO of the massive American conglomerate Shangri-La Trophy. Latu explains that Shangri-La Trophy is one of the largest corporate empires in the US, raising even more questions. Mitomi asks what that has to do with Arisa, prompting her to finally come clean. She reveals that after completing her MBA in the US, she traveled the country on a whim. At a party, she met Goldrich Diamond, who was so impressed by her beetles boiled in avocado recipe that he hired her to tutor his grandson, Turquoise, in building plastic models. One thing led to another, and Arisa eventually rose to become the first external vice president of the company. Tomatsu points out how little sense it makes. The Rock, however, stands by it and says that Diamond holds Arisa in the highest regard to the point where he wants her to become the next CEO. Startled by this, Arisa tells them that she is too young for such a demanding job, but The Rock claims that Diamond is sick and wants someone he trusts to take over his position. With that, he pleads with her to save the US economy and the whole world. In the end, Arisa makes the difficult decision to return to the US. Despite being sad, her friends support her choice, assuring her that they'll manage without her. As a parting gift, Tomatsu hands Arisa the lever figurine that moves her to tears. After she departs, the remaining gang looks around and realizes Akihabara has become a ghost town. That's when Mitomi turns to Tomatsu and tells him that his battle ends here. Tomatsu snaps, yelling at her to stop pushing him away as she'll end up all alone. Mitomi, however, insists she's better off that way and walks away, leaving Tomatsu frustrated and helpless. Moments later, the Chudori arrive and inform Tomatsu of their plans to protest the Akihabara ban. But Tomatsu, worn out and hopeless, tells them he's done. As he spirals into depression, Akihabara falls deeper under control of Kyoi's purification squad. Figurines and manga are burned, while maids and butlers are taken to prison. In response, various vigilant groups, along with Kage, hold a secret meeting to strategize a counterattack. During the meeting, a member named Taiyo points out that their failure to regulate cultured otakus led to minor crimes, giving Kiyoe the ammunition she needed to justify her crackdown. Still, he urges everyone to keep fighting if they ever want to reclaim their city. Suddenly, the meeting is raided by the Purification Squad. The Vigilantes stand their ground to protect their leader Kage, allowing him to escape amidst the chaos. Elsewhere, Mitomi finally confronts her imposter Yurame. Meanwhile, at the hideout, Nuaka grows tired of Tomatsu's wallowing and tries to shove him out of bed, but Tomatsu brushes her off, telling her to leave him alone. Frustrated, she declares that she's going to help Mitomi herself. Just then, Tomatsu sees a broadcast showing Mitomi and Yurame fighting in the distance. On the battlefield, the two sisters clash as Yurame demands to know why Mitomi betrayed their grandmother. It is then revealed that their grandmother, Fukame, had planned to use Matrotica to control humanity. Disagreeing with this vision, Mitomi retaliated, believing Akihabara should be shared, not ruled. Yurame, however, remains loyal to Fukame and accuses Mitomi of breaking their grandmother's heart. With tears in her eyes, Yuram levels her sword at Mitomi and asks if she ever considered how her departure affected the family. Just then, Tomatsu bursts onto the scene and knocks Yuram away. Mitomi tells him to leave, warning that Akihabara isn't what it used to be as Matrotaka is out for blood. Tomatsu ignores her and proceeds to kiss her, immediately transforming back into a bugged one. Furious, Yuram charges forward to stop him from eating her sister's face, but Tomatsu counters with a powerful punch that sends her flying. A fierce battle follows, during which Mitomi notes that Tomatsu is now stronger than ever. He eventually manages to strip Yuram of her clothes and manages to neutralize her. Just as Mitomi rushes over and embraces him, Yuram gets up for a final attack. But before she can strike, Arisa makes a dramatic entrance, crashing down on Yuram from above. Startled, Tomatsu and Mitomi ask why she's back. Arisa reveals that she turned down the CEO offer. When they press for more details, she explains that the sick individual wasn't the CEO himself, but rather his obese panda Billy. She saved the panda with her signature recipe, and now both Billy and Goldrich Diamond are off vacationing in Antarctica. As usual, Tomatsu is left flabbergasted by her absurd explanation, but doesn't question it because what matters is that electric mayonnaise is back. Meanwhile, deep within her lair, Fukam learns of Yuram's failure. In rage, she concludes that the true threat is Tomatsu. Elsewhere in the city, the vigilant groups are moments away from being sent to the gas chambers when Arisa, Niwaka, and Latu arrive in time to rescue them. As they make their escape, the leader of the Chudori notices Tomatsu and Mitomi are missing and asks Arisa about their whereabouts. Meanwhile, Masudo attempts to sneak away quietly but is caught by Tomatsu, who proceeds to beat the living daylights out of him. After a brutal beating, Masudo finally confesses that even he didn't expect Matrotaka to be this insane. Tomatsu and Mitomi question why he got involved with them in the first place, prompting Masudo to reveal that he was just a struggling YouTuber who got tricked by Matrotaka, who promised him exclusive news that would boost his popularity. Feeling cornered, Masudo spills everything. He explains Matrotaka's true goal, first seizing control of Akihabara, then expanding their influence across Japan to create an independent nation ruled by the Bugged Ones. He also reveals that the mastermind behind the operation is none other than Fukam. Shocked, Mitomi finally admits to Tomatsu that Fukam is her grandmother. This revelation leads to a heated argument between the two as Tomatsu asks her why she would hide crucial information from him. After fighting like cats, they convince Masudo to help them infiltrate Matrotaka's headquarters. On the way, Tomatsu asks Mitomi why her grandmother. Mitomi then explains that Fukam always believed Akihabara was being corrupted by human greed, and unless the greedy humans were eliminated, the Hazoku would go extinct. Mitomi goes on to confess that she once shared that belief until she left her grandmother's side 50 years ago. A confused Tomatsu asks just how old she is, to which Mitomi casually replies that she's 78 years old. Mitomi explains that when she first saw Akihabara for herself, she saw passion, creativity, and joy, none of which matched her grandmother's grim view. That was when she knew Fukam was wrong and began resisting her influence. Eventually, the two reach a path with two doors. Tomatsu, confident, opens one and encourages Mitomi to trust him. She agrees, but quickly regrets it as they trigger a series of traps set by Fukam. Battered but alive, they push forward until they are confronted by the Ototoi Friday, Fukam's personal guards. However, Tomatsu, now stronger than ever, effortlessly strips them of their clothing, forcing them to flee embarrassment. Mitomi insists they follow the fleeing guards, and their chase leads them into a grand hall. Tomatsu is awestruck by its sheer scale, and Mitomi reveals this is the true heart of Hazoku power, as this is also the place where the Kurobugs are manufactured. Their confrontation with Fukam finally begins as she launches a surprise attack that sends Tomatsu flying. Left alone with her granddaughter, Fukam demands to know why she betrayed her. She recounts how, when the Hazoku first arrived, Akihabara was full of vibrant energy. But in her eyes, humanity's greed ruined everything, leading to the rise of otakus obsessed with gooning to body pillows and figurines. Tomatsu re-enters the battle, delivering a solid punch to Fukam, which enrages her further. In her fury, she forces Mitomi to join her in destroying Akihabara. As buildings begin to collapse, Tomatsu tries to snap her out of it, but Fukam swats him away like a fly. Just before he hits the ground, he's rescued by Puko, who reveals she's returned from outer space. Meanwhile, Mitomi begins to fight back against Fukam's control and finally breaks free, reuniting with Tomatsu. Concerned, she asks how they'll stand a chance against such power. At that moment, they notice the stage lights come on. To their surprise, Arisa, Niwaka, and Yuram, who now believes she is Mitomi due to a previous identity crisis, are performing on stage while the people of Akihabara cheer them on. This sudden wave of support floods the area with energy. Latu reveals this was her secret weapon all along, a special light stick that converts emotional support into raw energy. Empowered by the love and passion of the crowd, Tomatsu and Mitomi charge back into battle. As the fight rages, they try to show Fukame that the Akihabara she despises is also a place of joy. For a brief moment, Fukame seems moved by the energy, admitting the glow of the crowd's love is beautiful, but then immediately changes her mind and launches another attack. This time, Tomatsu and Madomi do not hold back. Working together, they land a final devastating blow that brings Fukame down. Defeated, Fukame looks up at Matomi and finally admits she was wrong about the people of Akihabara. She tells her granddaughter that she should have listened to her all along. As she turns into a fart, Latu arrives and traps her in one of her gadgets, claiming she wants to know more about her. Elsewhere, Kiyomi prepares to run when she is caught by Momo, who reveals her true identity as an undercover agent and arrests the corrupt minister on the spot. A few days later, Akihabara returns to its former glory, with Kage working as the new minister. Later that night, just when Tomatsu and Madomi are about to make out, they are bamboozled by a spaceship. Arisa and Niwaka step out, grabbing the two of them and stating they're from the future and Akihabara is in trouble. Without giving them details, they throw Matomi and Tomatsu in the spaceship, disappearing into thin air. Do you also want to visit the Maid Cafe in Akihabara? If yes, comment oranges, and if you like this recap, watch this video here.